I'm a UPSC coach and mentor and a life coach. So in this session, I think we all know the agenda of today's session, right? So today's session is about the qualities that are to be imbibed or acquired in order to become a civil servant. So we all know the agenda of today's session, right? So what do you mean? So keeping that qualities part aside. So first of all, let us know who are these civil servants and what do they do, right? So why should we ask this question? So first of all, we have to know the nature of the job that the civil servants do. Am I right? So if you know the nature of the job, you will also eventually know what are all the qualities that you need to acquire in order to become a successful civil servant. Am I right? So, first of all, why should we know the nature of a job? For example, if you wanted to become a businessman or if you wanted to start your own firm or startup, so what are all the skills that you need to acquire? So, what are all the skills and what are all the qualities that you need to acquire? You should have the entrepreneur skills. Am I right? And you should acquire the qualities such as risk taking, innovation, resilience. So you will be able to, in a position, so that you will be able to bounce back. That is called resilience. You should be persistent. So these are all the qualities that you require in order to become a great businessman, a successful businessman, right? For example, if you wanted to become a teacher, so what are all the qualities that you require in order to become a teacher? If you become a teacher, so you should have the pedagogical skills. So what are all the pedagogical skills? The cognitive teaching skills, right? And what are all the qualities that a teacher should have? They should have patience. That is a very first quality. They should have passion, compassion, curious mind, right? So these are all the qualities that you require in order to become a successful teacher. So if you wanted to become a political leader, so you should be a good orator, right? So you should have the good orator skills. You should lead a team. You should have the team building ability. You should have the leadership skills, right? So why am I discussing the qualities of these respective jobs? So unless we know the nature of our jobs, right? So we cannot eventually evolve as a person to develop certain kind of abilities that are required for that job, right? So if you know what is the nature of a civil service job, so what do these civil servants do? How can we even know the qualities that you have to acquire in order to become a civil servant? Am I right? So, first of all, we would like to know who are all these civil servants. So, the civil servants, who are they? They are the representatives of the government. They are recruited by the government. For what purpose? In order to execute the government policies, the government schemes for the larger benefit of the public, right? So these civil servants, they actually do the service to the people. So they are responsible for delivering the government welfare schemes to the grassroots level people. So that is the nature of the work of a civil servant. So they do the service. So in that perspective, what are all the qualities that you need to achieve? What are all the qualities that you need to imbibe in order to become a successful civil servant? In order to become an ideal civil servant? So let us discuss. So let me segregate this session into two categories, right? First of all, let us discuss about what are all the qualities that you need to have in order to crack this UPSC exam, right? And second, in the second segment, we are going to discuss what are all the qualities you eventually acquire in order to become a successful civil servant. And of course, you need to carry the qualities once after you become a civil servant also, right? So here in the first segment, we are going to discuss what are all the qualities that you need to require in order to crack this toughest exam. It is one of the world's toughest exam. Am I right? UPSC is touted to be as the world's toughest exam. So you have chosen this. You have resolved to crack this toughest exam like UPSC. So what are all the qualities that you need to have, you need to acquire in order to crack this exam, right? So let me give a small analogy here, right? So for example, if you wanted to climb Mount Everest, okay? So if you wanted to climb Mount Everest, so you know what Mount Everest is. It is the tallest mountain in the world, right? So if you wanted to go for an expedition to Mount Everest, if you wanted to climb it to the top, so the very first thing that one person should have is, what is that? So it is, shall I tell you? What is that? It is the self-belief, right? So it is the self-belief or self-confidence, right? So if you wanted to expedite, so I have compared UPSC exam with the Mount Everest. Why? Because Mount Everest is the tallest mountain in the world and UPSC exam is the toughest exam in the world, right? So if you wanted to climb the mountain or if you wanted to crack the exam like UPSC, the very first quality you should have is self-belief. So when you have just started this preparation, there will be a lot of talking mouths around you. So somebody will say, Bhaiya, aapse nahi hota. And somebody will say, what is your qualification to crack UPSC? And somebody will say, do you really want to spend your time here in this unpredictable exam? And somebody will say, you would have chosen, IT over UPSC. So there will be, and most of the time, you will be acquiring a lot of, pressure across the peer groups, your family, society, friends, etc. So there will be many people who try to pull you down in this journey of UPSC. But the very first thing that you have to do is that imbibe the self-belief, right? So self-confidence. So I am here to crack the toughest exam like UPSC. So nobody is there to pull me down, right? So this is the very first quality that you need to imbibe. And one more thing, another quality is, I will say, it is consistency. So I'll give you a statement here. Your consistency, the quality of consistency weighs more than your hard work and your intelligence. What do you say? Is my statement right? Or are you going to agree with my statement? So I'm saying here that consistency weighs more. That means it is more important than your hard work, than your intelligence. Am I right? Why? Because I'll tell you an example. So if intelligence is the only criteria that UPSC is looking for, all the IITians would have cleared this exam. But believe me, I have in my friends few IITians who are like in IIT Kharagpur, IIT Delhi, etc., who couldn't even clear the prelims for the next 3 years. Okay? So UPSC is not looking for intelligent people. And in this era of smart generation, you don't believe in hard work. So I'm telling you, and this is my statement. So hard work, it's not hard work every time works. It's a smart work. Okay, it's the hassle-free work that I can say. You have to work in a very smart way. Don't consider that it's a huge burden or it's a huge thing, hard nut to crack. So your smart work always matters. So you are in a smart generation. You are just 10 years ahead. Your thought process is 10 years ahead than us, right? So you are in this era of AI. So you have to think in a smarter way, and you have to consider this as just like any other exam. Okay, so the second quality is consistency. What do you mean by consistency here? Consistency is that you have to do your work in a very lighter way, means you have to do your work even though it is a very huge task. Just break down into small tasks and do it every day. Consistency means continuity. Okay, continuity in doing your work, right? So for example, one day you have been like highly motivated, you have just watched a podcast or a web series related to this successful civil aspirants, or any other success story. So you are highly motivated. So on that day you have resolved to study for 10 to 12 hours. So will that graph really continues for the next few days? Do you really think so? No, obviously your energy levels will get exhausted. So your consistency graph will eventually grow up, then finally it comes down. Your preparation graph. So what I am telling you is that if you imbibe this quality of consistency, your graph will go something like this. Every time it has to go high and high and high, and you have to increase your strength of cracking this toughest exam. Okay, so that is the beauty of this consistency. UPSC, I'm telling you once again, UPSC doesn't require, UPSC is not at all looking for intelligent people. Okay, so ironically, even in my classes, I have seen the so-called the backbencher students who comes to the class with the only agenda of disturbing the peer group, or even like trouble the lecture, not even to give the chance to deliver the lecture, right? So the so-called the backbenchers who have cracked the exam and who are holding the top positions, right? So this is a live example. This is a real-time example. So never ever think that, never ever judge your intelligence and feel disappointed that you may not be the right person to crack the UPSC. So UPSC doesn't require, is not at all looking for the intelligent people. Even the moderate people with moderate intelligence or low level of intelligence can crack this exam. Believe me. So in the course of your preparation, when you follow this principle of consistency, you will eventually realize it. Okay. And coming to the next qualities to crack this exam. So I will tell you a few examples. So in these examples, so I'll give you some of the questions that were asked in your previous years. Means the PYQs, previous years questions that were asked in the UPSC exam. Okay, so in one of the questions, that was a question asked about the Aadhaar cards. So we all have the Aadhaar cards. Nearly almost every citizen of India is possessing Aadhaar card now, right? So in one of the questions, there was a statement in about Aadhaar card. So it was given like Aadhaar card is not considered to be as the source of citizenship, as a proof of citizenship or domicile. Aadhaar card is considered to be the source of citizenship or the proof of citizenship or domicile. So do you really think so? Is Aadhaar used to prove your citizenship? So what is the basic use of Aadhaar card? It can be used as a proof of identity, or it can be used as a proof of address. So if Aadhaar card is taken as a proof for citizenship, almost like every Indian will get the, almost like even that will cause a lot of chaos and confusion. Okay, so with your general awareness and general knowledge, so Aadhaar card, that statement can be proven wrong. Why? Because Aadhaar card is just a representation of our identity, a proof of our address, right? So in the second statement, it was given like Aadhaar card, Aadhaar number once issued to a person, okay, once generated to a person, it cannot be revoked by the authority that has issued it. Is that true? Is that really true? No, right? So there were many instances where the illegal migrants have got the Aadhaar card that has been revoked. There were many instances. There were many news articles. So this is a very general thing. So why? Because we have been Aadhaar card since ages, since years. So how many of us have even kept our attention about like how the Aadhaar card has been working with the citizens of India? Right. So this is one of the, this was one of the questions that were asked, and that can be answered very easily. Right. So that can be answered with your general knowledge. Right. I will also give one more statement. So UPSC is a kind of exam that can be written not with utmost intelligence, but with the common sense, with the curious mind, with the general observation. Do you agree with my point? If you don't agree, I'll prove it right now. So there were many instances where the questions asked like this in the previous years. So there were questions asked about the gestation period of an elephant. There were questions asked about the breeding period of a lion. There were questions asked about the basic principle of a pressure cooker. Right? There were questions asked about the squirrels. Right? So how these questions, like why these questions are even asked in the UPSC exam? So what is the relationship between these type of questions and, UPSC aspirant who is going to be an administrator? Right. So once upon a time, there was another question asked, I think in 2018. So when you go across a village, when you are crossing a village, you will see a bird sitting on the buffalo, and it was poking on the buffalo. So what is the name of the bird? That was a question asked in UPSC. So why UPSC? What UPSC is trying to prove? Like what is the pulse of the UPSC? Right? So here, what it is expecting from the aspirant? Is it your intelligence? So can you find these kind of questions either in NCRTs or any other book lists, standard books that you guys are reading for UPSC? Can you find any of these questions in those books? Obviously no. So these are all the things that you have to learn by your observation, with your curious mind, and that can be written with the common sense. Right? So there were many questions that can be solved with these kind of qualities. So I will say, apart from this self-belief, consistency, having the general knowledge, you should have the common sense, observation, and your curiosity. So almost every one of us have been using the pressure cooker in our home. Right? So we have been using the pressure cooker to cook the dal, to cook the rice, to boil the vegetables, etc. So how many of us even bothered about the principle of it, that how the rice or dal has been cooked in the pressure cooker? Right? So there was once a question asked. So many of us have been using the solar panels under the renewable energy scheme, and we are even getting the subsidy. So how many of us are even bothered about like how the energy is converted into an alternate current and have been like using for working of home appliances? So we all know about, we have been seeing so many solar panels installed at the rooftop, installed at the farms, right? But how many of us are even aware what is the working principle of a solar panel? So these are all the questions that will be asked even by ourselves with our curious mind. Am I right? So what I'm asking is that, so it may not, these type of things may be ignored by others. But as a UPSC aspirant, you have to keep an eye on your surroundings. You have to observe what is going on around you, what is happening in your community, what is happening in your village or in your district, what is happening in your city, across the nation, across the world. Okay? So you should not like deny that this is not my segment. This is not what I'm preparing for UPSC. Okay, so UPSC, it's like we all have heard that quotation, jack of all and master of none, right? So you cannot go depth into the subject of anything. We are not studying the rocket science here. We just need the common sense and general knowledge to crack this exam, right? So the general knowledge, it's like, for example, the Israel-Palestine war is going on since so long, right? And America has raised sanctions against Iran. Russia has invaded Ukraine. And with all these incidents happening across the globe, our stock markets have been affecting. Our stock markets have been fluctuating. So why is it even happening? So what is the relation between the Indian stock market and the events happening across the globe, right? So you have to keep a track on these incidents, right? Because you should have that general awareness. That's what's happening across the world, what's happening across the nation. So this is what our current affairs is all about. Am I right? So if you ask me, like, what are all the basic qualities that we as a person require in order to crack this exam, is you should have the self-belief and self-confidence, and you should have the quality of consistency, and you should improve your curiosity, become more curious, you should become more, show your enthusiasm to know the things that are unknown to you till now. Whether it is the working of a microwave, whether it is the working of an air conditioner, right? So there is a lot of science around us. But how many of us are even bothered about the working of all these, the application of all these, the luxury items that we have been using it? Right? So there was a question asked in the last year paper about the hydrogen vehicles. So that is a future revolution, right? So if you have the outlet pipe, you will be seeing the outlet pipe behind the cars, right? So there will be a lot of smoke coming out. So that smoke consists of the dust particles, the particulate pollution, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, etc., etc. So there were a lot of pollutants coming out within that smoke, right? So there was a question asked. So in the hydrogen vehicles, the fuel celled future vehicles, so these are all the hydrogen vehicles. So in those hydrogen vehicles, there is an outlet pipe. So what is a byproduct that is coming out from the outlet pipe? You don't believe? The answer is the water vapor. The water vapor is coming out from the outlet pipe in hydrogen vehicles. So that was asked in the last year. So the thing is that even UPSC has kept a subject called science and technology. In our journey of preparation, we will be learning even the science and technological developments that are happening around. So just for the sake of this, so we have to get ourselves even updated. Okay, even we have to be updated with the recent technologies that are happening around us. So we have to be more curious, right? So show your curious mind, make it more active, right? So these are all the basic qualities that are required to crack this exam. So apart from this, I'll also tell you about a few habits. Okay, the habit of reading. So how many of us are good readers in this room? So reading, it is not about the reading of newspaper or the reading of textbooks to crack the UPSC. You should also have the literature knowledge. You must be imbibing the habit of, inculcating the habit of reading a lot of literature. So you can question me, ma'am, why reading? We already have enough books to read. We already have so much of syllabus to study to crack this exam. Why should we, literature is again a burden on us. So we don't have time for this. So you can ask me like a lot of questions. You can pose a lot of questions. But there is a lot of requirement even for the UPSC aspirants, okay, to inculcate this habit of reading. So I'll just prove my statement. I gave you the statement that reading should be a part of your preparation, right? I will just prove this statement. So if you have seen the last year ethics paper, okay, there were a few quotations that were asked. Like the question goes like this. So, given the following quotations by the philosopher, so what these statements convey? The very first quotation is, so the very first quotation here I remember. So, the female, if the female is awakened, the people is awakened. If the female moves, the family moves, the village moves, the nation moves. So it was a quotation given by the Jawaharlal Nehru. So what this statement convey to you? Okay, so I'll repeat the statement again. If you awaken, if you want to awake the people, the female has to be awakened, because if a female moves, the family moves, the village moves, and the entire nation moves. What is the statement convey to you? So do you find this kind of statements in any of your NCERT books, in any of the standard books that you refer, like you will crack this exam? Right? So where do you find these kind of statements? So I'll tell you one more statement that was given by Swami Vivekananda. So these are all the statements that are not given by me. These are all the statements given by the philosophical thinkers of India. So the statement goes like this. So don't inculcate the hatred in you. Why? Because whatever you give it to others, it will get back to you for one or the other day. Right? So don't inculcate the habit of hatred, means don't hate others. Why? Because if whatever you give it to others, it will get back to you, whether it is good or bad. It is a quotation given by Swami Vivekananda. So what this statement conveys to you? And in an essay paper, in the last year essay paper, it was given like, when there is a society with justice, that society requires less charity. There is a society with justice, and that society will require less charity. So what is this? You have to write an essay on this statement. You know, it carries 150 marks. So what this statement conveys to you? So where do you find all these kind of statements in your NCERTs? Where do you find all these quotations? You don't find them in your NCERTs, neither in your standard books. So what I strongly suggest you is that you have to inculcate the habit of reading. Okay, so reading is a very good habit. So whatever knowledge that you acquire, it won't go on waste. You can apply that knowledge at one or the other time in your life. Right? So the thing is that you have to inculcate. So apart from these qualities, just try to inculcate this habit of reading the literature. So read about the autobiographies of Indian philosophers, of freedom fighters. Right? So just try to inculcate this habit of reading slowly. Right? So in this segment, we have discussed about the qualities that are required in order to crack this exam. Okay, so next we would like to discuss about the qualities that we acquire in this journey, in this process, in order to crack this exam. So what are all the qualities that are required in order to become a civil servant? So let me segregate these qualities also into two categories. One is the personal, means the qualities that are required, that are to be inculcated or to be imbibed for your personality development, and the qualities that are required for your professional development. Okay, so here let us segregate the qualities into two categories. The qualities that you will eventually evolve, you as a person. Those are all called as the personal for personal development, okay, and for professional development. So let us discuss the qualities that are required for you personally, for your personality development. What do you think is the first quality that you require here? Means if you wanted to be a successful civil service aspirant, your personality, for example, in this process, in the very first stage, okay, so you have the preliminary exam, right? So in your preliminary, your objective knowledge is tested. And in the next stage, it is the mains exam. There your subjective knowledge is tested. And what is the final stage you have? Mostly we call it as the interview, but it is to be called as the personality test. Okay, so in the final stage of this process, your personality is tested. Okay, so here your personality is tested and finally you were allotted a rank. Okay, so that is a reason why in the journey of your UPSC preparation, you will also evolve as a person, as an ideal individual. Okay, and you have to imbibe a few qualities. You have to imbibe a few qualities in order to become an ideal person. Okay, so what are all the qualities that you acquire in this process? The very first quality is patience. Okay, so patience and persistence. We have been seeing the aspirants who are cracking this hard nut, who are cracking this UPSC, 5th attempt, 6th attempt, final attempt. It shows their persistence. It shows their patience. Okay, so this quality is carried forward even in the future. Why? Because as a civil servant, you have been working with a lot of people around you. You will be having a lot of departments and a lot of people working under you. As a district magistrate, you have to manage, you have to delegate the work. Okay, you have to get the work done. It is easier to work because we know we have all the skills to do that work. But it is very difficult to delegate the work and to get the work done. Okay, so here you have to do that kind of coordination. So you need patience and persistence to get the work done. Okay, so this is the very first quality that you will develop in the stage of your preparation itself. Okay, so and the next quality here is empathy. So empathy, what do you mean by empathy? So empathy, usually this term that we read about the empathy in our ethics paper. So what do you mean by empathy and what is the definition of empathy? Empathy is something like you have to be there in the shoes of others. You have to think from the other's perspective. You have to feel for the sake of others. Means not all the time we feel for ourselves, we think about ourselves. Sometimes we have to think from others' perspective as well, right? So as a civil servant, you have to serve. So you are in your nature of job is service. So if you lack this quality of empathy, you don't carry any meaning to your profession. You understand? So empathy is the very basic virtue of any individual. And if you are working in such a sensitive position, if you are working in such a post like to serve like thousands of people, you should have this quality of empathy, right? So if somebody comes to you with a problem, you cannot simply deny that because you don't have the time. The other party don't have the money. So it is not that case. So you should have the empathy. First of all, you should think about from the other's perspective as well. That is what empathy is all about, right? So you have to inculcate this quality of empathy right from this stage. See, I'll tell you, if I talk about the other personal qualities, it should be, you have to be unbiased. You have to be non-stereotypical. What does it mean by unbiased and stereotype? So stereotype is something like you have a fixed mindset. Okay, you have a fixed mindset and you have a fixed idea about some person, some situation, or some other thing. Okay, so what I say here is that this kind of biases means you are just you know obliged, you are just be with bias towards some other person and you are just ignoring the facts. Okay, so you have to be unbiased and you have to be non-stereotypical. So there are like basic stereotypes that have been existing since ages in India. So these stereotypes, these are regional stereotypes, means we consider like this region people are like this and that region people are like that. There are like language stereotypes, gender stereotypes, community, caste stereotypes, religious stereotypes. So we have a fixed idea about so and so community, so and so gender. Okay, so there are like a few statements, like I'll give you a statement. Majority of the times we believe that woman is a weaker gender. Okay, so women cannot do tough jobs. This is a stereotype. Okay, so this is not any kind of like, I'm not talking about the woman equality, woman inequality and all. I'm just talking about the stereotypical, it's all about the mindset of the people, right? So this is the basic stereotype that has been existing in the Indian society. So this is not my personal statements. Okay, so if you yourself as a head of the district, you yourself, if you carry such kind of biases and such kind of stereotypes, yadha raja tada praja, right? So if you yourself is so much biased, is taking a stand, okay, and if you yourself has some kind of stereotypes, how are you going to be the representative of thousands of people? Okay, so the thing is that here you have to inculcate these qualities of unbiasedness and you have to completely be non-stereotypical. You should see these are all the things that we cannot inculcate in one night or in 1 year or in 1 or 2 years, right? So these qualities, these stereotypes and these kind of biases, we will just inculcate right from our childhood. Okay, so right from our childhood, in our family, right from our childhood, we used to discuss, we have a discussion about, certain community. We discuss about the politics. We talk about different kinds of people, right? So that will be inculcated, that will be carried forward even to the future generations. So even they don't have any first-hand interaction with so and so people, okay, with so and so community or with so and so person, they will just imbibe that idea that is this person is good, this person is bad, that political party is good, this political party is bad, right? So these are all the biases, stereotypes that we have been inculcating to our future generations. Okay, so once you have just crossed, once you are in your 20s or you are in your, like you have just crossed that age to get to know that you are in a wrong notion, that you are biased and you have so many stereotypes. So we can't really get rid of such kind of stereotypes like as soon as we start our preparation. Okay, so it is a step-by-step process. So that will be that biases, that stereotypes, you can get rid of those two qualities just by reading. Read a lot of books, gain some insights, gain some knowledge. Okay, so if somebody says, if our father says, especially when I'm in my childhood, my father told me that so and so person, Mr. Gandhiji, is responsible for the partition of this country. But eventually, when I grew up and when I read a lot of literature, I understood that Gandhiji is not solely responsible for partition of this country. It was the circumstances, it was the situations that arose at that time for the partition of India. right? So right from the childhood, I believe that only this person is responsible for the partition. Okay, just because I didn't see, I didn't even have the experience. Okay, but I strongly believe just because that was carried forward to me right from the childhood, that was imbibed right from the childhood. So you can get rid of these kind of stereotypes just by reading a lot of literature. Okay, gain some knowledge, gain some insights. Why to believe in some other statements? Okay, so just get the first hand knowledge by reading a lot of books. Okay, so that's how you crack this exam. It's not only about the NCRTs, it's not only about the standard book list that we suggested, it's not only about the Hindu newspaper. Okay, it's about your mindset, it's about your habits, your day-to-day habits, especially the reading habit. Okay, so get a lot of knowledge about the events that happen historically, right? So read a lot of literature, autobiographies, etc. Right? So these are all the qualities that you need to acquire personally. So apart from all these, one more quality that I say is your selflessness. Selfish is the opposite of selfless. Okay, so you have to be selfless. Means it should not be in the case that somebody is do some favor to me and I do the same thing, I reciprocate the same. So being in that sensitive position, you have to be selfless. Okay, so you should not expect any win-win situation, expect in any win-win situation or like giving. So once somebody is doing some favor to me and then only I'll reciprocate. No. So you have to be selfless. So your selflessness matters. Okay. So if you don't have this quality of selflessness, right? So the consequence is the corruption in the society. So there was a question asked even in the previous 2023 mains ethics paper on corruption. The question goes like this: corruption is the failure of the core, corruption is the manifestation of the failure of the core value system of the society. So what are all the steps that you need to take to build the core values of the people in the society? So how will you answer even such kind of questions? Right? So the question is asking that corruption is an output of the failure of the core values of the people. So how are you going to take steps to rejuvenate the core values of the people, being a district magistrate or being a civil servant or something? So that's how the question goes. So what are you going to answer for this? So who are responsible for the failure of this core value system? Right? So think about it. So I've been discussing about these PYQs because you have to get to know that not only the NCRTs or not only the standard books that you have to read to crack this exam. So you should be knowing that there is a lot of wisdom that you need to gain. Okay, apart from your polity, economy, history, geography, etc. Right? So these are all the qualities that you have to evolve as a person and you have to imbibe as a person in order to crack the final stage, because your personality will reflect in your answers, especially in your mains answer writing. Right? So I'm just talking about the final stage, the final interview point, that this personality development is important. Okay, so coming to the professional qualities. So what are all the professional qualities that you need to imbibe as a civil servant? So I can say it is the team building, or your leadership qualities, You are the head of a district. You are going to become the head of the district, right? So you have to lead a lot of teams and you have to undertake a lot of projects, right? So what are you going to do? So you have to take the role of a team leader. You have to be a leader in order to guide these people, right? So this is not something like only to the IT sector. So we'll see a lot of team leaders in, IT sector, right? Right. So that team leading is not only for this service sector, right? So you as a civil servant, you have to wear the cap of a team leader and you have to you have to take the lead of a lot of projects. You have to lead a lot of teams. Okay, so there will be a lot of departments under you. How are you going to coordinate? How are you going to delegate the work to them? Right. So with this team leading, if I tell you the first quality, then comes the quality of decision making. So decision making, here I would like to discuss about even the ethical dilemma. So ethical dilemma and decision making goes hand in hand, especially for civil servants. I'll just tell you an example. I'll just tell you a case study. Okay, this case study goes like this. That was given in one of your previous year exams as well. So there was a case study. You being a doctor, has appointed as a district magistrate of so and so state. So that state is something like a hilly region. That district is something like an hilly region, right? So there was a landslide. And there was a lot of chaos and confusion going on. And hearing that news, you just came to the incident place with a team and with a lot of ambulances, expecting that there might be a lot of injuries and emergencies, right? So one person came to you running that his wife is a pregnant and she is under a huge blood loss. Okay, so the thing is that she needs an emergency surgery. So you have a lot of blood samples lying in the ambulance. Okay, but you also know that in order for a blood transfusion, you need to get the blood only from the recognized blood banks. Okay, so the thing is that your team is ready to undertake the process when you given the consent to them. But you are in an ethical dilemma whether to proceed with the emergency first aid to that woman by giving the blood samples that are lying in the ambulance, or whether you have to follow the rules, the terms and conditions that you need to get the blood only from a recognized blood bank. So what are the options that are present in front of you? And as a civil servant, what are the steps that you are going to take to tackle this kind of situation? So this is called ethical dilemma. Here your decision making matters. Okay, so every time for a civil servant, the ethical dilemma and the decision making go hand in hand. Right. So this is just a case study. There are a lot of case studies that will be given to you in your ethics paper. Okay. So if you wanted to take opinion and if you wanted to answer such kind of questions, first of all, you yourself has to develop such kind of mindset. It's all about the mindset. It's all about our personality that will be reflected in our answers. Am I right? So in this situation of ethical dilemma, what is your decision making as a district magistrate? Right? So see, that's what I told you. Even if you read NCRTs for 100 times, and even if you go through that Lakshmikant for tens and tens of times, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so that may fetch you some extra marks in your papers. But if you have to answer these kind of questions, so you should have such kind of mindset. You should have to imbibe such kind of qualities that we have discussed. Okay, because that will eventually reflect in your answers. Am I right? So how are you going to answer such kind of case studies, such kind of quotations that I have discussed just below? Right? So just change your thought process. Just think in that manner and eventually evolve yourself, your personality, and eventually evolve your mindset as well. Just take a neutral stand. Just think in a neutral way without any biases and without any stereotypes. So that's what we discussed before, right? So the thing is that you have to take, every time you have to take a neutral stand without any sort of affiliation, without any sort of bias, or without any sort of stereotypes, right? So this is what I call it as the decision making. This ethical dilemma kind of situations will happen to you in your day-to-day work profile. Okay, so you have to imbibe a right mindset to tackle such kind of situations. So, and second one, the second quality that here is, you should have innovative mindset and you should get yourself updated. Okay, you are in the era of AI. So you have to think in such a way that how to implement the tools of AI in your day-to-day administration. You have to think in that perspective. You have to get yourself updated with the recent technology and you have to be more innovative. Right? So that is a reason why even UPSC have S&T subject as a part of the curriculum. Why you have to know about the recent technologies that are happening? So there were a lot of success stories of the bureaucrats who have used innovations in their way of working, in their day-to-day administration. Right? So there was a bureaucrat who has implemented such kind of innovation. So in the remotest village of a city in the northeast, a district in the northeast, right? So there was a situation where the tribals, they cannot reach the primary healthcare centers because of the rough terrain. So this respective bureaucrat, he has introduced the bike ambulances. So the bike ambulances for the basic first aid in, because the tribals are not able to reach the primary healthcare centers. So these bike ambulances will reach the tribals in order to give them the first aid. So this is a kind of innovation, right? So he is not depending on the traditional system of the patient coming to the primary healthcare center to take the first aid. Right. So there was another situation where a bureaucrat has helped the farmers to rejuvenate the ponds, to dig the ponds, and to tackle the drought situation. So that was an incident happened in Madhya Pradesh. Okay. So this bureaucrat has gathered all the large scale farmers, and he asked the farmers that if they are ready to afford at least 1/10 of their farm holding to dig the ponds. So why ponds are required? So this most of the times in India, the agriculture is rain fed. So we don't have the proper irrigation system. That is a reason why most of the regions and districts are considered to be the drought prone. Okay, so here he has taken an innovative decision of digging the ponds. You don't believe, in his span, in his term, he just motivated the farmers to dig almost like 20 ponds in their village, 20,000 ponds in their village. So these ponds will actually store the rainwater. It is not only beneficial to the larger farmers, even the smaller farmers also beneficiaries of this. Right? So this is really a innovative idea. So you have to think in that way. So in your day-to-day administration, you have to solve the basic problems of a people in a most innovative way. So there are the basic problems, the basic issues that you need to tackle about the road traffic system in urban areas, the transport system in urban areas, the water scarcity, the sewage disposal, irrigation, water irrigation for agriculture, right? So these are all the rain harvesting. So these are all the basic day-to-day challenges of a common man. So you have to think and you have to develop the mindset that how are you going to make their lives in a better way, right? That only comes out of your innovative mindset. So you have to take that initiative. So you should have to imbibe the leadership quality as well, right? So taking initiative is one of the qualities of a leader. Only a leader can take the initiatives, right? So you should be in a position to take such kind of innovative initiatives to make the lives a better lives, right? So this is what a common man is required, that common man is expecting, right? So these are all the qualities that you need to acquire eventually, in order to become a civil servant. So apart from these qualities, habits, skill sets, so what is the basic thing that you need? So keeping all these things aside, so what is the basic thing that you need in order to crack this exam? What is that? So, and fortunately or unfortunately, when we were writing our civil services, when we are writing our UPSC exam, there were not many resources online. But now, after 10 years, so after a generation, so the thing is that you have a lot of resources available in the market. There is a lot of information, a lot of material available in the market, and that is ironically causing a lot of confusion among the aspirants, right? So there were like a lot of professors that are coming up in the YouTube universities, okay, Instagram universities. So the thing is that is more confusing than getting some clarity to the aspirants. Am I right? So it is most ironical that you have enormous information and still you are in a stage of confusion. So I'll tell you a small story, story from Mahabharata. Okay, so that was a small story. So when both Pandavas and Kauravas, they thought the war is inevitable. Okay, so the war is inevitable for Pandavas and Kauravas. They are just garnering the support of the local kings, and they are just going to the local kingdoms to get the alliance, to get the support, okay, on the respective side. So as in this process, both wanted to visit Lord Krishna. Okay, so they came to Lord Krishna in order to get his idea of whom he's going to support. So in this process, so Duryodhana from the side of Kauravas, he visited Krishna. So Krishna was just acting asleep. So he's just acting asleep that when Duryodhana came to him. So as soon as he came, he sat like, when he was sleeping like this, he get some space to sit near to the feet of Krishna. Okay, so after some time, like he is still acting that he is asleep, right? So Duryodhana thought, like, being a great king, why should I sit even in beside his feet? So I would rather move towards the head of the Krishna, right? So later he get one more seat, like, and he sat beside the head of the Krishna. So Krishna, we all know, so he was expecting obviously Arjuna to come and visit him from the side of Pandavas. So when Arjuna came in, he get a seat, a ready seat near to the feet of Krishna. So being a disciple and worshipper of Lord Krishna, he felt so happy that he's happened to sit near to his feet. So as soon as Arjuna came, after a few minutes, Krishna woke up, right? So as soon as you wake up, like, you see the person that is in front of you, right? So he just got to see Arjuna. So he was just inquiring, like, why Arjuna was there even. So Arjuna was saying, when Arjuna started saying something, Duryodhana interrupted. So he was saying that I came first and I should get the opportunity, like, to get that question. That question has to be asked to me. That I am here to get this support, from you. So are you supporting the Pandavas or the Kauravas? So the Krishna interrupted. So Krishna was saying that, no. So I have seen Arjuna first. So it is his turn. So I would like to ask him whom he wants. Does he want me or my army to support him in this war? Right? So Arjuna immediately, without any second thought, he told that, Krishna, I don't want your army. I just want your support and your blessings in this war. Okay, so but Duryodhana is feeling happy behind that. See, this fellow is so foolish that he is just leaving that strong army of enormous horses, elephants, and trained soldiers, and he is just leaving that army just for the sake of a single individual. Right? So Duryodhana and Arjuna, so they both got their deals. Right? So Krishna is fighting on behalf of Pandavas, and Krishna's army is with Kauravas. Right? So we all know what is the climax of this Mahabharata war. So what do you understand by this story? What do you understand by this story? Right? So the story says, the moral of the story is, you should have a right mentor along with you. Okay, in order to crack this exam and in order to get the success at the end. Right? So choose a right mentor. I would like to say that you have chosen the right mentor. So welcome all to the Reflections IAS Academy. We are with you. We are here to guide you guys. Okay, to travel along with you in the journey of your preparation. Just believe in your mentor. Okay, so don't get confused with the enormous information that is available to you in the market. So with this, I would like to end up this session and I wish you all the best. Thank you so much.